Ladies and gentlemen, it is official. Rob Gronkowski is coming back. He will be a Tampa Bay Buccaneer. The best story of the offseason, Tom Brady going to Tampa. Who would have known that? But not just the best story, it's the best story bonus edition because it got even better. His favorite target, a guy that he has become so accustomed to playing with. They feel so comfortable together on the field and maybe even more comfortable off the field. But if you don't believe me, look at the czar, aka Adam Schefter of the NFL's Twitter handle. It is official, baby. So we know this is going to come to fruition. And when it comes to reporting in the NFL, Adam Schefter is the Bible. The guy's been doing it forever, so obviously we know at this point it is official, it's confirmed. Let's crystallize and summarize Rob Gronkowski's career for a second, shall we? His second year in the NFL, 17 touchdown receptions, 1,300 receiving yards, and 90 overall receptions. He was 22. That has only been done by two other guys. Chris Carter should have been a first ballot Hall of Famer, and Randy Moss, obviously, a no doubt about it, first ballot Hall of Famer. When Moss did it, he was in his mid-20s. When Carter did it, he was in his late 20s. Again, Gronkowski was 22. When I was 22, like most of you watching this who happen to be past the age of 22, you were still in college. Gronkowski was the best, in my mind, the best talent. Forget tight end. But that's the interesting point I want to make here, is Gronkowski was a tight end. And he was matching the all-time best receivers in terms of productivity on the field. But what he did, in addition to the Carters, the Mosses, and obviously the Rices and the Irvings, and the Art Monks of the world and the Largents of the world, is he was a better blocker than all of them. And that's what made him such a lethal dual threat on the field, was he could do a little bit of everything. Now, what's interesting is if you look at what the guy did up until the age of 26, he had 5 seasons in which he had double-digit touchdowns. The only one to equate to that was Randy Moss. The only one that tied that mark was Randy Moss, who got off to guns and blazing in terms of what he did impact-wise with the Vikings in his career. Not Jerry Rice, not Michael Irving, not Herman Moore, not Calvin Johnson, and obviously Marvin Harrison being the statistical guru that he was with Peyton Manning. Nobody aside from Gronkowski and Randy Moss had 5 seasons of scoring double-digit touchdowns by the age of 26. He was a tight end, folks. He was a tight end. He was 6'6", 260, and he was putting up the production of the greatest wide receivers in NFL history. By the way, and he accomplished this by the age of 26, I should say. No, excuse me, because the second to last season he was 28, so 28 years old. He had 4,000-yard receiving seasons as a tight end. Not too shabby, if you ask me. That has not been matched by any other tight end, and Gronkowski did it by the age of 28. A lot of people say that he was banged up in the final couple years, so they're going to doubt how productive, how efficient he can be in 2020. But we have to be fair here. Gronkowski, in his second to last season, put up numbers in terms of receptions, reception TDs, and receiving yards. Only matched, in his second to last season, the only guys that have had similar comparable numbers are Zach Ertz and Travis Kelce, maybe 2 of the best tight ends we have in today's game. And Gronkowski, in his second to last season, when people wrote him off, and said that his best days were behind him, was still among the best tight ends in the NFL. He was a better blocker than both those guys. And by the way, he missed 2 games that season. If you look at what he did, and even in his last season when people said he was absolutely on his last leg, only 5 other receivers had the numbers he had in terms of receptions, touchdown receptions, and receiving yards. But Gronkowski didn't come back. He did not come back to do well in the regular season. What makes him a top 100 all-time player, which when the list was revealed, I think he was the youngest guy on that list. It's amazing. The guy was 30 years old. He was already one of the 100 greatest players to ever compete in maybe America's King in terms of the ratings they garner on a week-in, week-out basis. But he's coming back to win. In the words of Al Davis, just win, baby. And that's what Gronkowski is all about. He is top 10 in receiving yards among all players, not just tight ends, in the history of the NFL playoffs. He is top 10 in receptions And the real threat, the absolute peak of a tight end in terms of getting into the end zone and grabbing that ball where no other defensive player is going to smack it out of your hands because of how amazingly strong and stalwart your hands are. It's like a Greek god when Rob Gronkowski is near the end zone because he is among the best of any player we have ever seen. And that's why only Jerry Rice, the all-time GOAT in terms of receiving, has more playoff touchdowns than Rob Gronkowski. And think about this for a second. Gronkowski never played a postseason game past the age of 29. And only Jerry Rice has more career postseason touchdowns. Rob Gronkowski had that big time, I believe it was the catch that set up the game-winning run against the Kansas City. By the way, notice how the Patriots in Arrowhead, sorry Nick Wright, in Arrowhead put up 40-plus points the next season without Gronk. Obviously being retired at that point, they put up 13 points against the Tennessee Titans, against a Ryan Tannehill team that many thought the Patriots would just completely roll over in the first round of the playoffs. We're not even accustomed to seeing the Patriots at home in the first round, and no one saw them losing that game, but they did, and in large part because Gronkowski was not on the field. We also know his last catch, obviously he's going to have more catches now, but what many people deemed as his last catch at the time, that was the 29-yard reception, and it set up the game-winning drive. And that was in the Super Bowl. Gronkowski shows up in the biggest of games. The other thing is this, and this to me is the most important thing. This is what makes this so special, is Brady was in a Patriot uniform for 20 years. That is unheard of in professional sports. Obviously, the Kobe's and the Dirks, that is a 1 in a million in terms of the longevity of a career in basketball or football. Baseball, you saw it a little more often, but football and basketball, players don't quite play to the age of baseball players because we know it's a lot more demanding and brutal on the body. But Gronkowski is going to give Brady that familiar face. And when you are Tom Brady and you're going to a complete opposite side of the country in a completely different culture, playing in a much different offense, you need a little bit of continuity. You need a little bit of consistency. And shout out to my brother Mike Shepard, who also pointed out to me that Julian Edelman, by the way, number 2 in receiving yards and number 2 in receptions in postseason NFL history, a Hall of Famer in my mind, but that's an argument for a different day, called Gronkowski the greatest tight end to ever play the game. That's high praise because remember, Tony Gonzalez, by many people's estimation, is considered to be the greatest tight end. You can make an argument that Rob Gronkowski might be knocking on that door, still has time to make a case for that, and I can't wait to see. I can't wait to see Gronk back in the NFL because he's got energy, he's got spirit, he's accessible to the media, he's accessible to fans, and like Dennis Rodman in The Last Dance, when Gronkowski got on that field, his craft, if you will, nobody played harder. We know he can be a little goofy off the field, and that's part of his charm. He was the guy again on the Patriots, even though they might have been universally hated by anyone outside of the state of Massachusetts. We know that Gronkowski was the exception to that because he was just beloved. I'm so happy for the NFL. I'm so happy for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and I'm happy for Tom Brady. And most importantly, I'm extremely happy for Gronkowski. I'm glad he's getting an opportunity to come back and show that he's got something left to prove. There's another guy that has something left to prove because he might be the most underrated player in the history of sports. I'm going to tell you who that is next. It's going to be part of a feature of our next episode. I'm so excited for the NFL, by the way. This is amazing. Gronkowski's one of the greatest tight ends to ever live, and he's coming back again. I'm so excited, guys. Really, it's such a good thing for the NFL. Anyways, to my tease. We are going to talk about the most underrated guy in the history of sports. He is an absolute legend in the sport, and I believe that may very well change in the next 3 months. He might be the most quietest superstar ever, and why we need someone like that in sports more than ever. I want to thank you for tuning in. I'm going to point down. I hope you subscribe. Again, the channel is The Good Shepherd. Also, you can find me on Apple iTunes as a podcast. Thank you for paying attention. I know you paid attention. thank you for taking the time out of your day. I know everyone's busy these days, and I know a lot going on in terms of society and dealing with coronavirus. So I hope everyone's safe out there, continues to be safe. And for those ones that have lost loved ones, thoughts and prayers are certainly with you at this particular time. Thank you for watching, and hope you have a great rest of your day.